welcome to the 2023. Hi, my friends made a thing, Gen Con edition of, wait, I did it backwards. The Gen Con edition of Hi, my friend made a thing. I'm already doing really, really well.
Yeah, it's going smooth.
A minute ago, I touched the screen and he was like, that's a photo.
That was a photo.
Yeah, we're doing good. We're having a good day. This is Kyle Latino.
Hello.
And he's here to tell us about...
So, a lot of people have been coming up to my table at Gen Con today and actually calling me by the name of my YouTube channel, which is Mapcrow.
That is your name?
Yeah, it is now.
Hi, Mapcrow?
Yeah. Because I knew I needed to pick something catchier than my name, because my name upsets and confuses everyone, including me.
Oh no!
So, yeah, it's just, you know.
I'm upset.
Look at
I'm
me.
confused.
It's an Italian name, but that's neither here nor
Being
there.
confused makes me so upset. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, that is kind of true. They're like, I'm confused, and therefore I am upset.
Yes, I'm upset about being confused.
Yeah.
That's enough for me.
Yes, so confused, so upset all the time.
So on my YouTube channel, it is an RPG art show where oftentimes I will be drawing or painting something, drawing a map, painting a monster,
Yes.
and then talking about either the process of doing that or how that art process either adds to my gaming experience or my GM prep methodology,
Yes.
or just like letting people know about different avenues for how to get into this as a hobbyist and maybe a professional.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I wish people would talk about more is how the visceral experience of a thing enhances the mental experience of a thing. And I don't think there's a lot of talk about it.
Yes, and for me as a traditional artist, that matters a lot. So I always like to work with graphite and marker on Bristol board, and I scan everything in because yes, it would be faster to do things digital.
It sure would.
That is
Not a lot of love for us traditional artists.
No, there isn't.
No.
I suspect the wind is changing on that.
Do.
Oh yes.
Oh
yes. But as James Gurney says, we don't paint to make images, we paint for the experience of making paintings. And that's the way that I think about my art practice, and I think that brings in that visceral nature that you were just talking about.
So it's not really about having a painting at the end of it, it's to do, like, I have a brush in my hand and I'm pulling the paint and the water across the paper.
Yeah. There is if you want to be an artist, there is some part of you that needs to enjoy the act of dragging implements across substrate. You
Yes,
know?
and this is kind of like the paper books thing. Like
Yes.
someone's like, it is objectively more sensible to just have a tablet with thousands of ebooks on it. But man, if you want to have a room full of paper books, there's something about it that's pleasurable.
Exactly, and actually, we just sold out of this agnostic TTRPG prep method, where you create a summoning circle of all of your favorite books.
That's hot.
And then you roll a dice to pick a random page out of that. So you're kind of it's like almost like a Jack Kerouac way of making your one-shot plan.
There's this really beautiful treasure thing that I love so much. I only have a few copies of it. It's just a sheet of paper, and you roll a die onto the sheet of paper, and then there are pictures of all the rewards on it.
Yes.
So if the die stops on a picture of a book, you're like, you find an old tome. And if the die stops on a pile of money, then if it's 9, they get 9 gold pieces. And if the die was on a 3, they get 3 gold pieces. And if it stops on a picture of a vial, they get some weird vial. And there's just something so charming about that.
Yes, and actually, as more more neurodivergent people are making tools and zines that reflect their own experience and what they find useful, especially in solo RPGs.
Yeah.
There lots more pictorial guides are being used.
I don't actually think more neurodivergent people are playing RPGs. I think more people who know that they're neurodivergent are playing and making RPGs.
I think perhaps you're correct about that. I think that's a strong assertion.
More people who understand and can verbalize and like think of themselves as neurodivergent, and like instead of just I hide inside RPGs because that is the thing that I do and I'm existing in a certain kind of way, but that I would never think to think of myself in that way. Now it is like a thing that we talk about.
The language has changed, and this stigma is still there, but it's people don't feel quite as shamed. I know that's certainly been my journey. I can't speak for anyone else, but that does seem to be a pattern I see emerging with a lot of creators just being more open about it.
Right, like I've had ADHD my entire life, and now people think of ADHD as neurodivergent, but when I was 6, you just did it. It was like a brain thing, but it wasn't a brain thing. And now we know about the emotional aspects. But when you're a kid, you didn't know about that part.
Right.
But that's actually like the biggest and most life-altering part of it is the emotional shit.
Right.
We used to just be like, you know, you're gonna have some trouble concentrating in school, and yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, but like the emotions and the rejection thing and the crying and they're like, no. No.
Well, at least how it was expressed to me when I was growing up in the late 80s and early 90s is like it was a behavioral problem.
Oh, 100%.
So we wanted to treat the behavior because we wanted that behavior to stop happening.
Yes.
And we didn't really care about the experience of the children who were going through something that they just didn't have the words to explain or the understanding from the community to exist in. So
almost all of it was conceptualized to the person experiencing it as a personality flaw.
Yep.
And as like a character defect.
Yep.
And all of the medicalization of language was 100% cerebral.
Right.
As in it's about focus, it's about concentration, and like all of the actual biggest stuff, that's all just your character defects. But it's you an individual. It has nothing to do with the brain stuff.
So and then also you take that into the self-publishing world and you inherit a lot of this is the way this is done.
Yes.
One of the things I did in Agnostic is I reprinted some old maps or old art prints, and I would just put numbers over the top of that, and that became the random encounter table. It's just like an old Bruegel painting or something like that, right?
Talking about Bruegel?
Yeah, right? So all these polyscenic artists from that time there are so many little micro scenes to pull in, especially for probably one of the best things you could do for a city campaign is just get a Bruegel art book and then just put little numbers over different scenes that you like, right?
Yes.
Because that's going to help you. That's going to communicate things much more quickly than reading a little paragraph.
Beer Street and Gin Alley.
There we go.
Oh my God.
So these are the things. Is just kind of finding my voice as a creator and realizing that. My reading disability doesn't make me ill-suited to publish material. It means that what I need to do is find what I am suited for and make tools that respond to my needs. Because it turns out there's plenty of other people who are like, yeah, this seems useful. So.
Tools. It really does come back a lot of time to tools. There was something I wanted to bring up before when we were talking about the visceral experience of our holding a brush and so much I recently had a game where they insisted I use the online die roller and that I could roll my own dice.
Holy moly.
And I legit was so tempted to throw a little tantrum. And one part of it was I don't want to game in an environment where I'm not trusted. I just don't.
For instance, yeah.
And and I don't want to have to explain that.
Right.
And also I want to roll my goddamn dice. I paid for them. And they are pretty, and I want them in my hand, and I want to throw them and watch them roll and read the numbers, and this is just part of it for me, and I don't want to have to explain that to anyone or justify it. And it seems like such a tiny thing, but it legit made me not want to even play this game.
Yeah.
And it really made me think about that,
A lot of games are entirely based around the aesthetics of some kind of movement. Right? Some kind of either locomotion or fine motor control or something like that. And for TTRPGs, that is kind of really concentrated in the dice. Yeah.
Exactly. I wrote a game that uses folded paper, And like the whole reason for that is that it occurred to me that so many games try to capture the experience of being a teenager, and like that kind of CW drama, like heightened emotionality, but no one actually uses the games you play as a teenager as in the game. So I was like, well, clearly I just want to do that. Like, why don't games use skipping rope? Why don't games use hand claps? Why don't games use cat's cradle? And then I started investigating cat's cradle, and you know what I found? You have to start over if you mess up. It's a series of string tricks that are passed back and forth, and they have names and numbers. And if you mess up, you can't start from the one you did beforehand, because each one follows one, and you legit have to start over from the very beginning.
I never really thought about it.
It was kind of mind-blowing for me.
I just always think of Vonnegut. No damn cat, no damn cradle.
Wait, explain to me the context of this.
He wrote a book called Cat's Cradle, and it's all about calling a thing a name that it isn't, right? It's just like if you look at a cat's cradle, it doesn't look like a cat, it doesn't look like a cradle. Why are we calling it this thing?
Why are we calling it that?
Well, you'd have to ask.
Yeah, and one of them is named after a soldier. One of them is named, like, they all have names. I mean, none of them actually look like anything.
Right.
But it's like constellations, right? You have to look at that. Like, why is Cassiopeia called Cassiopeia? It looks like a W. I don't know. Somebody saw a lady on a sofa and was like, that's a sad queen right there. That's what that is. And you just have to be like, I guess.
I was talking recently with a mutual friend of ours, Evan Torner, and he turned me on to this book I got to check out. It's called Hamlet's Mill. And apparently it proposes that stories come from, not from like this Joseph Campbell Hero of a Thousand Faces, but you have to go even further back than that. And all stories and story structures come from the stars and a response to stargazing. And that not only is there a consistent mechanism of like human linguistics, which follows a lot of rules even in different languages, but also it is perhaps based in a biological response to the patterns of the stars.
A biological response to the pattern.
I haven't read the book, so I couldn't tell you more than that, but it sounds interesting.
There's a theory about dragons. This theory that dragons are an amalgamation of the 3 first predators humans ever had to tell stories about.
Ooh.
That basically there are 3 things humans had to say to be like, watch out for those motherfuckers. And that was like snakes and the birds and like things with teeth.
Yeah.
So like they fly. So like watch out for the wingy things. And they're long and serpentine. So like watch out for fucking snakes. And then there are like big cats and big wolves. So like watch out for the things that paddle on the ground and jump on you and shit.
Still
and
great advice
you put them all together and you have dragons, and every single culture on earth has something with some amalgamation of those qualities, and like that's how we get dragons.
Yeah.
And also my first role-playing game ever, Changing the Dream, it says that basically the gentry or such are all come from human stories, which is a theory I do not approve of. It's very humanocentric, and that's problematic for me, by the way. But it does say that like the different kids are older and more powerful because they come from human stories, and the more developed human stories are younger. So like, yes, humans thought about kings and queens and stuff, but before that they thought about a cozy home, and those are the older fae. But before that, they liked animals. But the oldest ones, like the red caps, like the oldest fae are like, I'm fucking hungry. And those are the oldest stories. So like, yeah, humans tell stories about kings and queens. But like the oldest stories are like, something's trying to eat me, and I'm hungry, and I'm tired. And like, that's the kind of shit that I think about. So like, biological stories about the stars, I'm fascinated by that. But I always think like the really oldest stories are about like fire and gnashing teeth and shit like that.
Yeah,
like, that's the real shit.
What are stars but the fire and gnashing teeth out in space?
So you brought it home. Okay.
The cosmic ballet goes on.
I can dig it. Someone was like, what's scarier, the bottom of the ocean or out in space? And I'm like,
More likely to end up in the bottom of the ocean, I think.
That's kind of what I came to. I was like, space is scarier, but I'm more likely to end up in the bottom of the ocean, so I gotta go with that one. So, I gotta like, we're like going all over the place, and I love that. But I gotta bring it home. So you talk to people about making art and about getting into it. But how much, like, do you find yourself talking about a lot about getting into the hobby and like, man, see, I'm trying to like bring it home and like focus it, but I really just want to go everywhere.
Sure, sure.
Go, shoo, shoo, shoo.
We're talking about art, that'll happen, yeah.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry, I forgot how amazing this was. I'm so like focus, and my brain is just going, no, I don't want to. Man, all right. The stuff you said about cityscapes and maps, it comes back to that for me.
Yeah.
Like, cartography is such a potent art. I love the word cartomancy.
Oh,
because
yeah.
Have you ever read in Strange and Norrell that he does like map magic and like moves around the countryside by sitting down with a map and just fucking with the map?
Oh, man, I forget that part of the book.
Yeah, well, like at first he tries doing illusions and stuff.
Right.
And then it all comes down to very simple magic. And he tries doing impressive magic. And then one time he just rearranges all the roads. And there's a little annotation that goes, he never really got credit for this, but later scholars would decide it actually had a huge effect because he just confused everyone and made all the wagons go to the wrong place.
Right.
By rearranging all the roads. And then there was another part where he asked a soldier, what do soldiers hate the most? And the guy's like, mud. And he just makes a whole bunch of mud. And that idea of cartomancy, of like messing with a map and rearranging roads, has stuck with me ever since. And I think you do a little bit of that.
I guess I never really thought of it that way, but you know, the way that we oftentimes see maps presented, especially now with the rise of convenience of VTTs, virtual tabletops. You know, it's all these top-down gridded maps that are very, very polite, and you know, they kind of do exactly.
Polite. What a hostile word. Oh, there was some, we need to unpack
It's a little mustard on that one.
Yeah, I would say almost a little bitterness. Yeah, there's a little poison there.
I think you know, as Werner Herzog would say, documentarian. You know, we are part of the story. We should be buzzing flies. We fly in and we sting, right?
Yes.
Art should be an active, you know, fifth voice in the opera that is happening at the table. And when you're out and you're like, you know, actually doing something that's adventurous, probably you're thinking about like how where you are is pushing back against you. And you know, some systems are better suited for that than others. Specifically, like, you know, low level, like low magic, you know, old school kind of games.
Yeah.
I think, you know, more recently, like a game like Shadow Dark is really kind of capturing what that's all about.
I have not tried Shadow Dark.
It's really turning some heads. Yeah, I really want to.
Okay. You heard it here, folks. Kyle's gonna run in Shadow Dark for me, so I get to play.
But yeah, it's, you know, it is the world is pushing back against frail people. And that sense of peril enhances the sense of adventure versus kind of going in and using all your cool superhero moves until you're out of superhero moves and just hoping the boss is out of hit points by that point.
Right.
And I think maps can kind of engage in that. And they can also...
Right. The second example, the environment is just the place where it's happening. It's not really involved. It's not a character.
Yeah.
Right.
It's set dressing, right?
Right.
The stage is not changing. It's just this curtain we're kind of rolling up and down in the back.
Exactly.
Versus, you know, the actually dealing with the elements and having gorgeously illustrated maps down on the table as opposed to hoarded behind the GM screen also allows players to yes and with that.
Wait,
you know?
Have you ever seen a table with the maps hoarded behind the GM screen?
That is a common complaint of the isometric maps that I make. They're too spoilerific, you know? They show the whole place. And I think maybe it's better suited for different kinds of games.
The last time I bothered to use a map, It was because there was a cave, a winding cave, and there was a race against time because the tide was coming in.
Right.
And you had to go and find some people. And also there were like crates full of helpful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And also a thing that if you opened it, oh no. But the tide was coming in, you know, and you were on a clock. And like, if that's not happening, why have a map?
Right. So, like, you know, that's something you really activate maps with urgency, but urgency just activates stories in general, and maps are part of that.
I love that. I've never had anyone voice that so well before. I guess I never really thought about it. It was an instinct I had, but you really kind of put a pin on what I didn't know I thought until now.
Well, you know, David Mamet kind of breaks down screenwriting with some simple questions, like, you know.
I love it. We're talking about D&D maps, and you're like, and Werner Herzog would say, and David Mamet would say. No, I love this. I'm making fun of it. I'm not really making fun of you. Poking fun a little bit, but no, I am 100% with you.
But yeah, he would kind of break down a screenplay into, you know, what is the main character want? What happens if they don't get it? Why is the thing happening now, right? So like the temporal aspect, the causal relationship, the urgency of this threat of losing this thing the character wants.
And what would Wes Anderson say?
Right, well,
about D&D maps?
Whatever he would say it very deadpan, right?
Yes, exactly. Actually, we had the most horrific idea the other day. I don't remember what it was, but we were thinking about like the worst mismatches that were ever happened, and we were thinking about and we were thinking about like, what if this horrific horror movie was directed by Wes Anderson? And we're like, that idea exists now because you had it. Why is this happening? What happens if they don't get it? These are such intense questions, and I think we forget it so often.
Yeah.
We kind of get really granular with the story, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes we get so focused on the needs of the game that we forget the needs of the story, and vice versa, right?
Like, we forget what's happening diegetically.
Because I don't think story
What do you
would
mean
be...
by the needs of the game and the needs of the story?
A story is like a pattern that we apply after the facts, right? When we can create the illusion of causality. And games actually illustrate this really well because as you're using random encounters, the reason this happened is chaos. We had this chance operation.
Right.
That's why the bugbear showed
up.
up.
We're playing the game.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, it's Daniel Kwan. I heard him say this once. I don't know if he coined the phrase, but he says history is not the past. Right. The past is a series of events that emerged from a chaotic system.
What happened, but history is the story we made out of it.
That is the meaning we try to kludge together from the past.
Well, I mean, but humans
and we have our biases and reasons for doing it.
can only remember things as a narrative.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that story is a diegetic object.
I actually just said, I had a little mini rant in an interview literally last night, that humans can only remember things as a narrative. This is like a theme. Right? And it's something that we impose on the world. It is not actually how the world works. The world doesn't need a story. Reality doesn't need a story. It's us that need a story. Just like time does not exist. Time's not a real thing. It's humans that are like, I perceive things as a linear narrative. And like, that's not a real thing.
Right.
That's just a thing that we perceive.
Yes,
as existing.
But like so many made-up things, has a lot to exert upon the way we go about our business, doesn't it?
It does. And once again, we've slid all over it.
And that's how I think about maps.
Maps. Get some and make them. Give me an example of how a map, how the world exerts itself upon the story. I mean, like, how does a map give it teeth? How can you give your map teeth? How can it be a character? Give us some examples.
Through you could do something very simple, which is juxtaposing something on the map. Put something somewhere where it doesn't belong. And that's what everybody's going to want to pay attention
I
to.
say put tables all over that the characters can like knock over and shove around. That's my idea.
For instance, right? Like, and sometimes you can get like an advantage or bonuses for interacting with that kind of stuff.
Then you can put people through it with the right to sell them.
But you can convey point of view through a map as well. So there's a lot of people that criticize Tolkien's maps of Middle-earth because if you look at Mordor, it's this big square. Right, and some people read into this and they say like, well, you know, Sauron is all about like fascism and rigidity, so it's all these right angles kind of convey his point of view.
And his maps do have a point of view.
Exactly.
Like straight up, those bad guys, that's where they live.
Right.
It's dark there. It's bad.
But also, if you look at older maps, just from actual history, such as it is. You will see that, you know, as discovery continues, maps become more detailed, and the places where people don't survive very long are less detailed and more geometric. So this is a way that Tolkien is perhaps conveying that everybody who goes to scout the exact layout of the mountains of Mordor dies before they can give a detailed account of it.
Oh my god.
Maps, point of view.
But it's not an intentional point of view, it's an incidental point of view that is reflected. Like, it's
What is intention?
It's 100 tiny things that like are cumulatively revealed in this thing.
That's art.
That we're seeing. God damn it. God, I love talking. Every time I talk to you, it's like my worldview gets like wrenched around.
So time illusion that it is running out. I do need to run off.
Yes,
So
yes.
you have one more question, I think.
I have one more question, and that is, what is something that's happening in gaming right now, or an idea that's emerging that you are so hyped about, that you're excited about?
I am really encouraged by the spirit of promiscuity in the gaming space right now. There's a lot of people. Well, specifically, there's a lot of people who are exploring other options besides 5e. I've heard a lot of that here at the convention because of some of the various and sundry scandals that have come out from that particular company. But also, like, you know, some really interesting things are rushing in with exciting new options that people seem more willing to explore and excited to talk about. And I'm really looking forward to what Gen Con looks like in 2024.
So people are slutting it up.
What a great way to put it.
Yes, people at home, keep slutting it up. Be safe, have good boundaries, but play hard, play fun, play lots of games. Is that what we're saying?
It cannot be put better than that.
Thank you so much, Kyle.
The pleasure was all mine.
Awesome.
It's good to see you.
All right, wave to our viewers. Bye, you guys.